Here we go again. Another week of fun and frivolity on the National Briefing. This is Kelly Nash, and we give you both, the fun and the frivolity. We never give you one without the other. You're not going to be sitting around with the frivolity going, hey, where's the fun? No. You're going to get them both here. And usually on Monday mornings, what we like to do is look back on Sunday, because that's when all the talk shows happen, and there's no possible way you can watch them all, because a lot of them are running at the exact same time, and many of you actually live lives outside of politics. You probably went to church, you probably maybe went to brunch, you did things with your family. And so we sacrifice for you, and we come in and go through all the tapes and then find the highlights and lowlights of the Sunday shows. Yesterday, the Money Honey. I don't think we call her the Money Honey anymore. We'll have to check on that. Maria Bartiromo has a show called Sunday's Futures on Fox News where she landed a big guest. He's the Vice President of the United States, J.D. Vance, who explained the actual problem as we look at Texas redistricting. Everybody's talking about it. That was topic A all day yesterday. What is really going on there, JD?
Even Democrats actually admit this, that the census in 2020 had a major statistical error. And what that meant is that you actually undercounted a few states that are Republican, like Florida and Ohio. You overcounted some blue states. And so if you actually did the census anew right now, you would have 10 additional Republican seats and 9 fewer Democrat seats. And really what we're living with, Maria, is the consequence of 40 years of institutional control in the Democratic Party. These guys have fought very dirty for a very long time, and they haven't just won elections and enacted laws that we may not agree with. They have tried to rig the game for Democrats and against Republicans. And thankfully, under President Trump's leadership, you finally see some spine.
Yes, you finally see some spine. Finally. And that's what makes it so hysterical when, like, Kathy Hochul and Newsom and the rest of them, they're all talking about the Texas Democrats, they need to get out of town. We're going to fight fire with fleeing. And but if they want to redistrict, we can redistrict too. Well, you've already done it. You've done far worse than that. I mean, but yes, as far as redistricting, you guys have actually led the way. And speaking of leading the way, we just heard from J.D. Vance. This is J.B. Pritzker, multi-billionaire, thanks to the Hyatt family. They went ahead and interviewed him and apparently didn't prep him for the very pointed question. Again, when you go on MSNBC or NBC News, this is, I think, Meet the Depressed with Kristen Welker, you're expecting the softball questions if you're a Democrat. And she actually came with a little bit of a pointed question, which I think might have caught Mr. Pritzker off guard.
Every major group that grades the fairness of congressional maps gives your state an F. Common Cause, a nonpartisan government watchdog, even says your map, and I'm going to quote, represents a nearly perfect model for everything that can go wrong with redistricting. And I guess the question is, you talk about preserving democracy. How do you preserve democracy if you're using the same tactics that you've criticized Texas Republicans for?
But as I say, what they're talking about is a distraction. The reality is that the violation of people's voting rights is what Texas is attempting to do. That's what's wrong with their efforts right now. And the fact that the president of the United States knows it and nevertheless is asking them to do it. That is what's wrong with what we're seeing right now. Democracy is at stake.
Yes, democracy is at stake. I love that position. They're always, and again, they just presented to you, sir, that nonpartisan groups say you're the actual worst offender when it comes to this redistricting, which you say is a threat to democracy. I think in J.B. Pritzker's mind, and if we ever had him on the show, I would ask him, in your mind, because the word Democrat got a lot of the same letters as democracy, when you say you're fighting for democracy, is that code speak for I'm fighting for Democrats? Because that's what you're doing. Democracy is different than Democrats. But maybe in his mind, and maybe in all their minds, when they say we're fighting for democracy, what they really mean is we're just fighting for Democrats. Because that's the way they've run their states. That's the way they institutionalize everything. So I think that's what he actually means. Now, speaking of Democrats, we're going to go back to Texas. Now, I don't know, is it because all the Texas Democrats have fled the state or whatever, but MSNBC's Jonathan Capehart decided to interview a guy that you and I should know as Robert O'Rourke. That's his name. But I think most of America knows him as Beto. And Beto is a fake Mexican. Why do I say that? Because he's Irish American, 5th generation, born and raised. First, he was born in Texas, raised in a Virginia boarding school, went to Columbia University, trust fund kind of kid. I'm not sure if they've fallen on hard times because he's won one election when he won the House seat, and that was in an 80% Latino district. So he started speaking in Spanish and with an affected, like broken English accent and calling himself Beto. I don't do a very good Spanish accent, but Beto O'Rourke, I would like to represent you when it comes to the Congress. And I don't know, they bought it and they voted for him. Then he got a huge head and he thought he could be the governor of Texas. He got crushed there. He thought he could knock off Ted Cruz, got crushed there. Now it's been 9 years since this guy's had a seat, and yet they pull him out and ask him for his opinion on stuff. And if you look at the video, it looks like he's living in like an extend-a-stay. I'm actually concerned. There's like a little microwave behind him. It's a dark room. He looks very lonely. Anyway, Beto tells Jonathan Capehart he's very encouraged.
It's super clear that Republicans care about power and nothing else. And for far too long, Democrats have cared about being right, coloring within the lines, following rules, and power has always been a secondary consideration. We need to absolutely flip that around and focus on power exclusively. It's why I'm encouraged by what I'm hearing by Governor Newsom of California.
All right. There you go. Beto O'Rourke said, this is the narrative I'm sure that runs through their minds. You know, we've always just been the party of let's do what's right. And I mean, you know, if we get Democrats or Republicans, it doesn't matter as long as we're doing what's right for the American people. But now the Republicans, they're just obsessed with power. So now we've got to become obsessed with power. But as we started this segment off, J.D. Vance demonstrated and actually eloquently pointed out the problem that for 40 years, the Democrats have been obsessed with power, and they have done everything they can to change the rules in order to obtain the power and hang on to the power. I'm reminded of Lindsey Graham, and I know a lot of you don't like Lindsey Graham, but when Lindsey Graham was basically crying at the Supreme Court hearings, and he said, "My God, you people are blinded by power. I hope to God you never get it." Because of what they are willing to do and say, and lives that they're willing to destroy in order to get it. That is the Democrat Party. And so, yeah, Beto, yeah, Pritzker, yeah, Hochul, we are now starting to play by your games because, as J.D. Vance says, we have a president and a leader in the Republican Party who actually has a spine, who does not care what the media says. The jig is up. We're no longer bowing down to the public pressure of CNN and MSNBC and we're going to put up politicians who kind of poll well with that. No, we're going to do what's right. We're the party that's actually doing what's right, and we're going to let the chips fall where they may. And I'm here for it. This is what the MAGA movement was built for. Let's go, America.